James Corden's an irrepressible life force. He's very funny, passionate, emotional, and that's why everyone loves him.
I feel like I'm in a waiting room before I'm going into court to be charged on my whole life.
I think underneath all that very confident, humorous exterior is a guy who has been through quite a lot. I want to get into what happened to him when he became a star and got a bit too big for his boots.
There was a period where I went out and I imagine he won't let up on wanting to know literally the ins and outs. Can't use that.
How are you feeling? I hear a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I've seen this show before, so I am nervous, yeah. It felt like such a good idea a few months ago.
Why are you nervous?
You know exactly what form this is going to take. I don't, and that's why I feel nervous about it.
And what I love about you, probably most of all, is the incredibly infectious enthusiasm you have for the ridiculous celebrity life you now lead. You're like the ultimate fan. You behave like this sort of starstruck kid. When Paul McCartney called you one day out of the blue, you tell that story like the most crazed Beatles fan ever, and suddenly he's on the phone.
Well, it is amazing, because if someone like Paul McCartney's going to ring you, he doesn't just ring you out of the blue. There's an email where someone says, Paul McCartney would like to have a conversation with you. Is that OK? And then they go, OK, Paul McCartney's going to ring you tomorrow at 11:30. And so you go, fine, right. And then at 11:10, the phone rings, and it's this lovely lady, and she says, hi, I'm just calling from Paul's office. I'm just checking that you're by the phone. You go, yeah, no. And they go, you're by the phone, aren't you? And you go, you know, I'm on the phone. They go, no, I know, but you're not going to go to the toilet or anything. If you go to the toilet, will you take the phone? You go, yeah, although I'm not sure he'd like that, you know. And then the phone rings, and you know it's there, because it's like an unknown number, and you have a moment of going, hello? And he goes, and then in that voice that you've heard a million times, you know, hi, James, it's Paul, and then you're into a conversation, and I'm amazed by it all of these things. I don't want to be cool about it. I think it would be ridiculous it would be stupider to be cool about it. I'm aware of how ridiculous that is.
I found some photographs of you in superfan capacity. I want to go through these. The first one is Alicia Dixon. What are you doing there? You carrying her bags?
I'm carrying her bags.
Why?
In the hope that when she gets in the car, she'll go, do you want to come back with me?
The answer was no, right?
Well, no, there wasn't even a question. She just...
Give me the bag.
She just went, oh, thanks, see you, babe, bye.
You seem to be having as much luck with the second picture here. You seem massively more into that pairing than Leona Lewis.
Well, I'm sure I am.
You're going for the full, get this picture, I need this.
No, but this couldn't be a shock, could it, that I would be more interested in meeting Leona Lewis than Leona Lewis would be interested in meeting me. These are normal things, you know. But she was very nice. I didn't try and have any shenanigans with her.
It's not always been the women. We come to picture number 3.
OK.
Oh, dear. I mean, what are you doing to Matt Lucas?
Well, he's a friend of mine. I'm kissing him goodbye.
He doesn't seem very happy about it.
He was.
He's not.
He was. He had an erection.
And I think the real problem for you comes when you meet a genuine A-lister. I mean, I am really uncomfortable there. I'm just trying to get away from this amorous assault.
You're not. No one knows where your other hand was. We do.
Let's go back to a copy of your school report that we unearthed from 1989. You were 10 years old. You talk about this in your book. And your teacher wrote, James needs to pay more attention to schoolwork and less to his clowning and showing off. James's biggest problem remains his lazy attitude to work. So you were a show-off, you were a clown, and you were lazy. Guilty?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no question. I couldn't argue with a word in that report. I knew from such an early age what I wanted to do and what I wanted to be, because I really played a a brave hand at school, you know. If it had gone the other way, I would be finished.
Did your parents know that you were getting these terrible reports?
Well, basically, there was a big thing in our house where my parents would go to parents' evenings and things like that, and the teachers would say just that, and sometimes worse. They would say that I was disruptive, disinterested, lazy, all of these things, and my dad had come home and he would go mad, and I mean proper mad, like a full Malcolm Corden rage, which nobody wants to be on the wrong side of. Like, red-faced, angry, and it would normally end in a smack on the bum, you know? That's the truth. And there was a moment where I was being so disruptive, I guess, that because my dad was in the Air Force. If you're in the Air Force, you can send your kids to private school, to boarding school for free. And him and Mum were having a huge row about me. I was sat on the top of our stairs next to our banister hearing my parents row about what they were going to do with me and how I was, you know, and Dad was saying, he would say, you know, he's going to end up doing nothing. They're saying he's lazy and all these things. And he told Mum that he was looking into sending me to boarding school. And Mum said, and I remember it like it was yesterday, Mum said, if you send him to boarding school, I will leave you.
Wow.
I will divorce you. I will not let you break up this family. So on hearing that, rather than change my attitude, I would just come home and lie. And I would come home, I would come home and go, oh, Dad would go, how'd you go on the school today? And I'd go, oh, it's amazing, Dad. They're thinking of moving me up a year. You know, I would say, oh, I'm doing that well, Dad. You know, Miss says my English is the best in the class. Yeah, oh, my maths, I've got an A in maths today, and he would go, brilliant. And then, of course, not thinking it through, the school report comes around, and the school report day at school, it's a shit day. If you're bad at school, that is a rubbish day.
But you actually sneaked into the headmaster's office and you stole your report.
Well, no, I stole the report, I stuffed it down the back of my pants, and in the afternoon break, I ran out to the woods and hid it in the... I was digging a hole with my bare hands, like it was something out of a film, you know? And I hid it, and I put the earth over, and my report was lost from the school. Our head teacher said, I'll give you a replacement when you come back from the Easter holidays. By the time it came back, my parents had forgotten it was report day, so I took it and I hid it behind the boiler in our cupboard because I just couldn't bear...
Do they know you did this?
Well, they do now.
Because they also, I don't think, were aware that you quite often didn't go to school at all.
A good couple of days a month, I just wouldn't go in, yeah. I would walk down the road, hide behind the bushes at the end of the woman's house at the end of our road. I'd watch Dad leave in his car, and then I'd just walk back. And I'd let myself in, and then I'd just lie on the sofa all day.
Now, James, as we've heard, as a young schoolboy from High Wycombe, you weren't exactly the most likely candidate for superstardom. Award-winning actor, writer and comedy king James Corden is one of our biggest new talents.
There's only one of you, isn't there?
He's got the great and the good of showbiz and sport on speed dial.
I love you, man.
I love you!
James is actually, in real life, more wonderful and exuberant than he is even when he performs.
He's naughty, he's courageous, he's daredevil.
He's very cute with very twinkly eyes. Very, very wicked.
Game for a laugh. I mean, he's a big lad, and I've never known anyone who'd be such a big lad so keen to take his kit off.
As a tubby teenager, James didn't have much luck with the ladies. His masterstroke? He formed a boy band and modelled himself on his all-time hero, Gary Barlow.
I think James has always been fascinated with boy bands.
You'd come home and he'd be in a pair of pants and a t-shirt learning all the dance routines.
He even set up like fake photo shoots. I mean, really serious about being a pop star.
We would perform at school assemblies, and we had this sort of following of 9-year-olds.
When he started drama school, it soon became clear that acting was his true calling.
Are you doing anything later?
There was one production I vividly remember, and he ad-libbed so much he stopped the show because of the laughter that was going on.
World domination was still some way off for fame-hungry James, and auditions were tough.
There weren't a lot of parts that he was right for, and he himself said to me, I guess that's because of my size.
I said, oh, you know, mate, why don't you just, you know, give it a break? And I still remember the exact words. He said, Dad, I can't. It's what I've got to do.
Oh, look at it. Look at the...
And his big break finally came in the shape of TV drama Fat Friends.
You bloody bastard!
James played the part of a bullied, overweight teenager.
What are you doing?
What, I don't like you, eh, you fat about this.
It really did affect me emotionally. The tears just streamed down my face.
Don't tell me you can feel it under all that flab.
James then auditioned for a new play called The History Boys.
This extraordinarily confident, loud creature flew into the room. And in about 7.5 seconds, Alan Bennett and I decided we wanted him to be in the show.
He also clinched a role in the screen version of the smash hit play. James's star was on the rise.
He's used his tubbiness to his advantage, you know. He always used to say there are hundreds of tall, beautiful-looking men trying to get jobs in that industry. There's not many like me. So it just meant that those roles that came up, he was just an advantage for him.
When James went on to co-write comedy drama Gavin and Stacey, being a bit plump was part of Smithy's charm.
I can't breathe, I can't do it.
Maybe he's a bit overweight. Don't think it's a big deal, honestly. I don't know, would he be less funny if he was less plump? I think he probably would.
Interesting views there from different people about whether part of your appeal has been the fact you're not the size 0 kind of actor. How do you feel about it?
You know, there are lots of people in our industry who would tell you that you can't do great things if you don't look a certain way. And the truth is you absolutely can. You absolutely can. I would like to be lighter than I am. I absolutely would. Certainly since having a son, I would like to lose a bit of weight, and I have lost a bit of weight over the last couple of years, and I would like to lose a little bit more. But I couldn't bear it not being able to, you know, have a cornetto.
I can't let this segment go without talking about the boy band. A more toe-curling thing, it would be hard to have unearthed about you. I mean, when you watch that video, are you cringing, or are you still thinking, I could have been and take that?
Absolutely, no question. I love it. I was so into it. Like, you know, if I wasn't sat here now doing this, if my life hadn't gone the way it has, thank God, in the last few years, I would be with the thousands of people queuing up on X Factor or Britain's Got Talent or whatever the other thing was. I wanted to perform so much in whatever capacity it was. I just wanted to perform, and being in boy bands, like, my love of Take That, that was, in fact, at school, I got bullied more for that than I ever did for being big.
Well, you went to see them 15 times.
Absolutely. I'm not one of these Johnny-come-latelys who's walking around. I'm not one of these guys who's walking around. You know, all my mates at school, they used to bully me so much because I used to go and watch Take That with a group of girls from our year. And now, all my mates from school are like, oh, yeah, That Greatest Day, that's a great tune. I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, it is, and so was Babe. I feel vindicated in my love for them. When I go to the, like, Progress tour at Wembley Stadium, and there's 90,000 people there, men and women, and everyone's singing, like, I'm like, yeah.
There you are
I was right.
With your eye.
Look at that, I'm so excited. I was so happy when I saw I was sat next to Gary Barlow at that dinner. You have no idea.
And didn't you, when you finally met him, when you were both famous, Didn't he ask you for a photo?
Yeah, well, I went to see them, the circus tour at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff, and I went with Joanna Page, who plays Stacey in the show. And before the gig started, we were taken to their dressing room. And we stood in this dressing room, kind of all playing cool, and I couldn't hold my cool for long enough. And I just went, I'm so happy you got back together. This is the 15th time I've seen you. And then he went, oh, thanks, mate. And I went, and that would have been enough. Anyone else would stop there, and I went, I can dance the opening 15 minutes of the Berlin video. And he went, you what? I went, I can do all the moves. And they were like, we don't even remember them. I was like, I do. And then I was just doing that. No! And they were just like going, wow. And then Jason was going, yeah, that was a good routine. I was going, yes, it was. And then before we went, Gary just went, I know this is a bit uncool, and I was thinking, after what I just did, he went, I know it's a bit uncool, do you mind if we get a photo? Sure.
We asked him to take part in this programme, and he chose not to.
I didn't know that, but I can understand why.
In 1996, you were 18, Martin Gare in the West End, and you were in the chorus. When you knew you got it, must have been a moment of great euphoria.
Oh, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. When I was growing up, all I used to dream about, other than being in Take That, was was to be in a West End show. That was it.
And yet, within a year, you quit.
Well, the truth is, if you think I've got an ego now, you should have seen it when I was 17, 18. Like, it was ridiculous, because in my head I thought, well, I'm in the chorus, but I'll turn up and they'll probably spot something in me and give me a big song on my own, I imagine. And then they didn't.
But then comes the big moment, when you land a role in Hollyoaks.
That's right. I signed up to do it on a month-by-month contract, and I did about 3 months. And we knew that there was an offer coming in where they wanted me to stay for a year. I remember Dad coming in and saying, well, what's the latest? And they'd offered me a year's contract, and it was like £70,000, which it's a phenomenal amount of money to be paid to act.
More than you'd ever been offered before.
Yeah, ever in my life. I mean, I think it was more money than anyone in our house had ever earned, you know. And Dad said, and what do you think? And I said, I don't know. And Dad said, and I remember it so vividly, he said, well, if they've offered you that money and you don't know, then you don't want to do it. And I said, but it's such a lot of money, Dad. And Dad said, you don't need it now. You live at home, you're here with us, you don't need that money now. And he said, you'll get used to it. You'll get used to it, and you'll buy a car, and you'll buy a house, and before you know it, you'll wake up and you're Ken Barlow. And I have great respect for Bill Roache, you know. I do, as an actor, but I think Dad knew that that wasn't what I wanted.
You then got an audition for the History Boys at the National Theatre, which is the kind of mecca for any serious actor.
Yeah.
So when you got the audition, this to you probably, and I guess to your dad as well, was probably the moment of realisation of a proper dream, right? It
was a life-changing thing, being in that production.
How did you get the part?
To be honest, the truth is I got sent the script and I didn't understand a lot of it. It was incredibly wordy, very dense, and historical events which I knew nothing about. And that was a real moment where I did think, God, I wish I hadn't been the way I had at school. I knew that I would understand this a lot more. And I thought, God, I'm going to meet Alan Bennett, you know? And you go around and you go into a room and there they are, and then we did the audition, and I think I read okay, and they sort of laughed a bit, and I got offered this part of this boy called Tim's, and I flicked through the script, and he had like 4 lines, and I just thought... And then Alan called. He said, I know there's not much there. He said, if you say you'll do the play, I promise I'll give you something interesting to do. I just said, and you just say yes.
And the only way I think you could have topped it was what happened next in your career, because you then land a job in a comedy film called Cruise of the Gods.
Yeah.
And these particular gods are Rob Brydon, Steve Coogan, David Walliams and Russell Brand.
That's right.
I mean, those guys on location must have been pretty lively to work with.
I would barely get a word in. You would sit round the dinner table and it was a contest of incredibly funny brains.
It wasn't just a dinner table, because you actually got lured down to your first ever lap dancing club.
That's right, yeah. We'd had a few drinks and I'm just sat thinking, God, I'm having a drink with... You know, a lot of the time I felt like their nephew who they had to babysit, do you know what I mean? Like, I was just always around, you know? And Steve said, why don't we go and have a lap dance somewhere? And I'd never been before, and Dave was like, shall we? You know, and I said, oh, I've never been, you know, and Steve went, you've never been? Right, that's it, we're going now. And we go into this nightclub and it's, you know, music, and there's girls swinging round poles in their underwear, and I'm like... and we go over and we're in these seats which are actually very similar to this. Steve's here, I'm here, and David's there, and there are all these girls, and we're chatting, and this girl starts doing this lap dance. And it's the greatest moment for anyone who's, like me, I'm a huge Partridge fan. She takes off this bikini top, and just as she's lowering her breasts into my face, I look over like this, and Steve goes, aha! Amazing moments, you know?
Rob Brydon gave you some very good advice on that trip. What was it?
Well, we were walking to this taverna down the road, and we got talking, and he was saying to me, what do you want to do? And I remember saying to him, well, I would love to be part of British comedy. It seemed... Because for me, being on the outside of it, it just looked so cool. And he said, well, why don't you just write? I remember him saying to me, no one's going to just offer you a seat at the table. You've got to earn it. You've got to muscle your way there. And I remember thinking, it stuck with me for a long time, that.
Rob Brydon's advice to write your own material turned out to be, for you, a stroke of genius. Gavin and Stacey hit the small screen and made a huge impact. It was James who came up with the original idea.
He'd been to a wedding in Wales, and he sat and just observed it and found, you know, sort of these two families coming together on this day, and they probably not many of them knew each other, and yet sort of they gelled. That's where Gavin and Stacey came from.
But it was former Fat Friends co-star Ruth Jones who gave James a shove in the right direction.
I said, well, why don't we just try and write something, just to put it on paper, and if it goes somewhere, great, if it doesn't, it doesn't.
The two of them together write wonderful characters, but they're also great with plot.
Together they wrote a comedy classic.
I remember crying with laughter reading that first episode.
He said, guess what? They've given us the green light for Gavin and Stacey.
I think when you first saw Gavin and Stacey, you immediately realised that James and Ruth had tapped into something brilliant within the British nation.
It captured the viewers' hearts.
Basically, it's a love story. That's what it is. Beautifully written and beautifully observed.
And there is a lot of emotion in the show, a lot of tender moments.
I look at you, I look at her. You're like two peas in a bag.
All the characters have little catchphrases or sayings that people latch on to.
Gavler indeedy!
Smithy became a cult figure.
I can't get it off.
What are you doing wearing that thing anyway?
I thought it'd be a laugh. Seriously, it's not coming off.
I'm not surprised. How'd you get it on? Isn't it a child one?
No, it's 12 to 14.
I can vividly remember the part where you see his, you know, fat bottom, and I'm thinking, oh my word, what's going on here?
Gavin and Stacey was pulling in more than 10 million viewers and scooping up BAFTAs and comedy awards galore.
And the BAFTA goes to James Corden.
James had become television's golden boy.
Thank you.
Break friends, never, never break friends. If you do, I'll flush you down the loo, and that will be the end of you.
On screen, Smithy was best mates with Matt Horne's Gavin, but the pair were joined at the hip off-screen too.
From the moment they met, they just got on so well. And it was kind of a bit sad for me, because it was like, I've lost my friend now, because he's gone off with the new boy.
James and Matt seemed to hit it off straight away, and I think I can remember saying, well, so you two must have known each other before this. And they go, no, because they had that rapport.
It was a rapport that came to an end 3 years later. Gavin and Stacey's last episode was shown on New Year's Day 2010. James and Matt had tried some new projects together, but they didn't have the magic touch of Gavin and Stacey. Then there were reports that the pair had fallen out and weren't on speaking terms. James and Matt, once billed as the next Morecambe and Wise, never worked together again.
Smith. Smithy!
What's the truth? What went wrong between you and Matt?
We never fell out. That was never what it was. It was never that. We went through, we had such an intense love for each other. Like we were one person for a long time. And we had the best time. And the truth is, these things that were offered to us, the sketch show, the film, hosting the Brits with Kylie Minogue, all these things, we just rushed into them, and we just went, yes, yeah, oh, wow, we're going to make a film. We're going to be the leads in a film together, and we're going to make our own sketch show. And if I have one regret, it's that we just rushed those things. We rushed them. We were riding this amazing wave, and then when it stops, you actually, the people that you anchor to are the people who've known you the longest, not the people who you've just met. And also, once we decided not to make another series of our show, that was a very definite decision that we were going, well, we're not going to be spending every day together. I think we counted 1 year. We spent 263 days of the year together.
But you went from that to nothing. I mean, what's the situation now between you and him?
I love him. I love him. And
do you talk much?
We talk occasionally. Yeah.
And we asked him to take part in this programme.
Right.
And he chose not to.
I didn't know that. But I can understand why.
Why?
Because it's a hard time to talk about. So...
Yeah, but half of it is fantastic to talk about.
Yeah, but when you know what's coming, when you know that it doesn't end in the way that it could have done, I can understand why you wouldn't. And I still hope one day we could do something together.
Do you think you will?
Yeah, but I don't know what that'll be. It probably won't be a TV show or a sketch show. I just hope one day.
This is quite a dark place to find yourself.
Just bang, bang, bang. Every day it felt like, oh, OK, all right, I get it. They're not good enough, you know?
You were born in 1978 in High Wycombe to your dad, Malcolm, and mum, Margaret. You've got two sisters, Ruth and Andrea. Growing up, I mean, you seem now a very close family. Have you always been that close?
Yeah, I think so. We've always been in a... It's always been a very loving, supportive family, always, yeah.
It may surprise people, that you grew up as a member of the Salvation Army.
Mm.
Your father was in the brass band, your mother was in the choir, and you were pretty full-on, weren't you? What did you do in the band?
From minute one, from birth, we were in. You know, it was... And it felt like the most...
What did you have to do?
Well, it felt like the most normal thing in the world at the time, that we would all get dressed in... On a Sunday morning, we would wake up, put on a uniform, Mum would put on, like, a bonnet, Dad would have a uniform on, and we'd go down, we'd have the church service, and then we'd march through the town, you know.
How many times a day
songs.
on Sunday?
Well, we'd have 3 services. There was the morning service, then we'd do the march, then you'd rush home for a roast dinner, then you'd be back for the afternoon, and then the evening service. And it felt like such a normal thing to do.
What did you personally do?
I was in the band, I played the cornet, and I was in the singing company. And we'd march, and we'd... you know, and we'd sing on with Christian Soldiers and all of these things, and Mum was in the songsters, and Dad was in the brass band, and Dad was the junior band leader for a while.
It was pretty religious, then, as a family.
Yeah, yeah, very.
James, I want to take you back to the absolute height of your career, late 20s, and you're one of the most loved, popular actors in the country. Riding high on his sensational success, James was at the top of his game. But their accusations of the adulation and acclaim had gone to his head.
Is that your other one?
That's my other one. That's the one we just won, yeah. Out of interest, how can the best comedy performance and the TV show of the year not be eligible for best sitcom?
James, don't be bitter.
You could feel the room change. It was horrible, because there was my friend up on the stage in his moment of glory, and he was ruining it. And I wished I could have, you know, I was some kind of telepathic way of going, don't, you idiot, don't do this.
I didn't want him to become something that I knew that he wasn't.
It was a crazy time after winning the BAFTA, and yeah, he did go a bit off the rails for a little while.
I think that's tough for anybody when they suddenly become hugely famous from nothing and suddenly everything's free and everybody wants to be your mate.
The keenly anticipated sketch show, Horn and Corden, was panned by the critics, with one reviewer calling it the worst show ever made.
If you set yourself up with something that pretty much everybody thinks is fantastic, you've got to be very careful about what you do next.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. I'm Matthew Horn. And I'm James Corden, and we've got our own show! There he goes.
I remember him doing Horn and Corden, and some of the stuff, I remember going to watch him film it live, and it just being so funny, but then watching it on the TV just kind of wasn't the same.
They had a go. All right, it didn't work totally. You move on to something else. That's all part of it. I don't think anyone can honestly say, I've always been successful.
Just as they were flopping on television, James and Matt's film Lesbian Vampire Killers was slammed by the critics too and bombed at the box office.
It was the first time he'd really had that kind of press.
I found it really hard, actually, because he was my friend and he was getting a really bad time.
He was very hurt by a lot of the things that were said about him. And it was hard for us to read too.
A dejected and dishevelled James cut a sorry sight around town as he drowned his sorrows. Friends and family were worried.
I sort of felt like that sort of bumbling energy that he had and that sort of love for life and zest in his character had left him.
I remember speaking to him, and he just said that I haven't been home for a week, and I've just walked back in the door, and he said, I don't know who I am, and
James's parents decided he needed help.
I think his life was empty at that time.
I can remember us saying, can we pray with you, James? And Malcolm did just that.
When I knew how low he was, I knew he would take it on board.
Surreal, it was a real moment and very special. I'd like to think that was a changing point for him, but family that rallied round and told him they loved him.
What are your thoughts listening to that?
It's funny when you're on a roller coaster like that. You think it's just you on it. You never think to look back and realise what it's doing to your parents or your sisters or things like that. And that's what I find hardest. I don't know. I don't really recognise it as who I am, really.
Did it all basically go to your head, do you think? Do you think you just became a cocky little git?
A prick, like, just, you know, like, I just did. I thought... And that BAFTA night is the purest example of the two sides of my personality at that time. It's a stupid way to behave.
It was like, look at me, I've only won 2 of these, I should get more.
No, it wasn't that. That isn't what it was. I know that's how it came across. That's completely how it came across. It wasn't that. There are no redeeming features to that. I am continually embarrassed. It makes me shudder. That and the way I was behaving at the time, the swagger in my walk and the bag of chips on my shoulder, and it was stupid.
And when you had that extraordinary sort of intervention by your parents. What do you recall of that moment?
I remember my dad saying, you can't carry on like this, James. It's just not who I've been for 31 years of my life. It's just who I was for a moment, you know?
Did you pray that day?
I just shut my eyes. I just burst into tears.
And for someone like you who's so exuberant, this is quite a dark place to find yourself.
Yeah. Firstly, the most important thing is that the work wasn't good enough. The sketch show, the film, the hosting of the Brits when we did it with Kylie, it just wasn't good enough. When the reviews were at their very, very worst, when it was reviews and then reviews of the reviews and then profile pieces on the reviews. You know, there wasn't a day when these stuff, people just bang, bang, bang. Every day it felt like, oh, okay, all right, I get it. They're not good enough, you know? There is an absolute choice you can make. When those things happen, when those purple patches of success come along, you can either take it with a bag of salt or you can start to think you're a bit more of a dude than you really are. And I absolutely did the latter and then some. I just got so lost.
Do you feel like you've come through a bit of a long, dark tunnel?
Completely. The minute I got myself right, she was just there, waiting.
There were some alarming reports of your attempts to lasso yourself to famous women. Your pursuit of Lily Allen became almost historic. Talk me through it.
I went on her TV show and we were flirting a lot. And we swapped numbers and she was single and I was single and, you know.
You're thinking back of the net, aren't you?
She called me and said, do you want to go to this gig at the Albert Hall? And I thought, in my head I heard, do you want to go on a date? So I put on my best thing, you know, aftershave and turned up and it was like her and a couple of friends. So, okay, I wasn't, you know.
How did it end?
I ended up back at her house one night. It was me and her and some friends and it was getting late. She said, do you want to stay tonight?
And be honest, what are you now thinking?
I'm thinking what any man would think at that moment, Piers. I'm thinking what you'd think. You're thinking, right, this is it. So I'm following up the stairs, thinking, OK. And then she said, she opens the door. She said, all you're thinking is play it cool, Trigger. Just play it cool, Trigger. And she goes, so you can sleep in there. Night.
In 2009, you went to a party and your old friend Dominic Cooper from the History Boys, one of your closest friends, introduces you to Julia.
Yeah.
Who's now your fiancée. What was that moment like?
We lived together at the time, Dominic and I. He said, come on, Jim, let's go out. There's this great party. It's a big charity fundraiser. Let's go to this party. I said, oh, do you know what? I'm really not going out at the moment. He said, come on, I'm back for a week. Let's go out and just have a good time. I mean, and thank God that I did, because...
What was your first thought?
I remember thinking, oh, my God, she's, you know, beautiful. I did that thing, I met her, and Dominic was here. And I went, hi, how are you? Oh. Do you know what I mean? We spent the night just talking. We sat in the corner of a room and we talked. She had never seen Gavin and Stacey or anything. She works for Save the Children, and she said she didn't really watch TV. So I just said, I said, what are you doing on Friday? She said, I don't know. And I said, I was wondering if you'd like to do nothing. We could just stay in and do nothing. And if we do nothing, that doing nothing could really become something. What do you think? And she said, OK. And that was it. And I loved her instantly.
When did you realise she was the one?
When she went away. She went to Calcutta with her work, and a lot of the time, obviously, she'd be going out into areas where, you know, there are no mobile phone signals, you know. And that was when I knew, because I couldn't get hold of her, and all I wanted to do was talk to her and hear her voice, you know. And slowly and surely, I could just feel myself becoming the person that I recognised as myself, really.
So, James, you've met the woman of your dreams and you've bounced back big time. James was back in business when Comic Relief called, thanks to Smithy.
Hello?
Hi, is that Smithy? Everybody who ever is funny and gets famous always gets stung by Comic Relief, and James got rung, and he came up with a completely unrealistic idea.
To make it work, James would need to call in the England football squad.
James always thought it would be really funny if somebody literally just said it how it was to the team, walked into a room and just told each England player what they thought of him.
Crouchy, when I look at you, everything tells me that you should be rubbish at football, and yet you're brilliant.
Absolute key with James is he's a genuine fan. That's the key thing. So when people meet him, they realise it's not somebody who's been scripted to like them. It's actually someone who does like them.
James is so loved, it seems, that anyone, however big, is happy to be on screen with him.
Baby, I'm your man. I love it!
I think he's got a genuine crush on David Beckham. I think he genuinely loves him.
Actually, you have this one. Mind you. You. Stop it, you silly Billy.
We'd love to do Smithy Meets the Queen. That'd be great, wouldn't it? No, she'd agree, but it would be good fun.
Following his recent return to the stage in One Man, Two Governors, the critics have fallen back in love with James. He's starring in Hollywood's Three Musketeers.
Complete and utter waste of space, sir.
And?
As much use as a fart in a bottle, sir.
Right.
And he's found time to get up close and personal with the Doctor.
He's right back up there again. But it really has been an up and a down career.
To cap it all, James has taken on the biggest role of his life, as a dad. James and girlfriend Julia are the proud new parents of baby Max.
I was so thrilled to be asked to be his godmother. It's so lovely to see him settled. Julia is just gorgeous and I think is wonderful for James. And to see this little family of Cordens is just so, it's gorgeous.
When you heard you were going to be a dad, and after all you'd been through, must have been quite a special moment.
It was great. I just felt so ready. Because of her, really. I didn't ever think that I could be as happy as she's made me. And then now, to have a little mix of the two of us is... I mean, it's just great. In every way, it's brilliant.
Do you feel like you've come through a bit of a long, dark tunnel?
Completely, completely. Absolutely. But... You know, the weirdest thing is, like, I dreamt of all those things for so long. All that stuff, forming a boy band, all the auditions as a kid. I dreamt of them so much, and then... But you never really know... What happens to a dream when it becomes a reality? It just sort of vanishes within you, and I've been looking at this goal for so long that once I kind of kicked and scored, I was just... When I went to pick up the ball, I was in a... You don't know where you are, and I had to sort of fight my own way out of that. And the minute I did, the minute I got myself right, she was just there, waiting.
What has being a father done to you, do you think?
It's done what I think it does to every man, you know? You just don't realise quite how much you can love someone. And I miss him when I'm away, and I can't wait to see him when I'm back. And when I shut the door, when I get into our house and I shut the door, I just feel so lucky that I have so many nice things. I have so much to be grateful for. And so when I come in there, it's great.
James, this has been great too.
Well, with 60 years in the business, you can be sure he's got some amazing stories to tell. Rolf Harris is Piers Morgan's guest next week. Over on ITV2 now, Ant and Dec play Keith Lemon's updated version of Wonky Donkey on Celebrity Juice. Here on ITV1, Keanu Reeves stars in the supernatural thriller Constantine after the news.
James Corden's an irrepressible life force. He's very funny, passionate, emotional, and that's why everyone loves him.
I feel like I'm in a waiting room before I'm going into court to be charged on my whole life.
I think underneath all that very confident, humorous exterior is a guy who has been through quite a lot. I want to get into what happened to him when he became a star and got a bit too big for his boots.
There was a period where I went out and I imagine he won't let up on wanting to know literally the ins and outs. Can't use that.
How are you feeling? I hear a little bit nervous.
Yeah, I've seen this show before, so I am nervous, yeah. It felt like such a good idea a few months ago.
Why are you nervous?
You know exactly what form this is going to take. I don't, and that's why I feel nervous about it.
And what I love about you, probably most of all, is the incredibly infectious enthusiasm you have for the ridiculous celebrity life you now lead. You're like the ultimate fan. You behave like this sort of starstruck kid. When Paul McCartney called you one day out of the blue, you tell that story like the most crazed Beatles fan ever, and suddenly he's on the phone.
Well, it is amazing, because if someone like Paul McCartney's going to ring you, he doesn't just ring you out of the blue. There's an email where someone says, Paul McCartney would like to have a conversation with you. Is that OK? And then they go, OK, Paul McCartney's going to ring you tomorrow at 11:30. And so you go, fine, right. And then at 11:10, the phone rings, and it's this lovely lady, and she says, hi, I'm just calling from Paul's office. I'm just checking that you're by the phone. You go, yeah, no. And they go, you're by the phone, aren't you? And you go, yeah, no, I'm on the phone. They go, no, I know, but you're not going to go to the toilet or anything. If you go to the toilet, will you take the phone? You go, yeah, although I'm not sure he'd like that, you know. And then the phone rings, and you know it's there, because it's like an unknown number, and you have a moment of going, hello? And he goes, and then in that voice that you've heard a million times, you know, hi, James, it's Paul, and then you're into a conversation, and I'm amazed by it all of these things. I don't want to be cool about it. I think it would be ridiculous it would be stupider to be cool about it. I'm aware of how ridiculous that is.
I found some photographs of you in superfan capacity. I want to go through these. The first one is Alicia Dixon. What are you doing there? You're carrying her bags?
I'm carrying her bags.
Why?
In the hope that when she gets in the car, she'll go, do you want to come back with me?
The answer was no, right?
Well, no, there wasn't even a question. She just...
Give me the bag.
She just went, oh, thanks, see you, babe, bye.
You seem to be having as much luck with the second picture here. You seem massively more into that pairing than Leona Lewis.
Well, I'm sure I am.
You're going for the full, get this picture, I need this.
No, but this couldn't be a shock, could it, that I would be more interested in meeting Leona Lewis than Leona Lewis would be interested in meeting me. These are normal things, you know. But she was very nice. I didn't try and have any shenanigans with her.
It's not always been the women. We come to picture number 3.
OK.
Oh, dear. I mean, what are you doing to Matt Lucas?
Well, he's a friend of mine. I'm kissing him goodbye.
He doesn't seem very happy about it.
He was.
He's not.
He was. He had an erection.
And I think the real problem for you comes when you meet a genuine A-lister. I mean, mean, I am really uncomfortable there. I'm just trying to get away from this amorous assault.
You're not. No one knows where your other hand was. We do.
Let's go back to a copy of your school report that we unearthed from 1989. You were 10 years old. You talk about this in your book.